بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحابته أجمعين. اللهم إني نويت التعلم والتعليم والتذكر والتذكير والنفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على تمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم والدعاء إلى الهدى والدلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم يا الله. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا ومولانا محمد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. So following on from last week, where the Imam mentions the need, the necessity of having a murshid, someone who can guide us on the path to Allah. And the idea essentially is that every single person has a shaykh. Everyone has a shaykh. And what's meant by this is that everyone is being influenced in one way or another, whether we can see it or not see it. It's as simple as that. And the easiest way to understand who you're being influenced by is to see who or what exactly you spend the most time with. And that's your shaykh. So if you find that you spend most of your time with certain types of people, certain groups of friends, that's your shaykh. We don't mean shaykh as in you've taken them as a shaykh. Shaykh in a sense here that they are the one who's influencing you. Or if we spend our times not with human beings, but with non-human entities, then that becomes the shaykh. Whether it's the internet, social media, telephones, movies, drama series, whatever it may be, that's your shaykh. Because at the bottom it's about who is influencing you. And so when the Imam says that it's necessary for everyone to have a shaykh, it's another way of saying that it's necessary for us to be influenced by the right people. And so now he goes on to list the qualities, the attributes, the characteristics of a murshid on page 36 here. And so he says, فَنَقُولُ, these are the qualities, the characteristics that we must look for. مَنْ يُعْرِضُ عَنْ حُبِّ الدُّنْيَا وَحُبِّ الْجَاهِ. So we say that the qualities, the characteristics that you must look for in this murshid is that it be someone who is averse to love of the dunya. In other words, they turn away from it. And love of fame. We'll go back and read each one of them and explain them. Someone who turns away from the love of the dunya and love of fame. حُبِّ الدُّنْيا وحب الجاه. وكان قد تابع لشخص بصير تتسلسل متابعته إلى سيد المرسلين صلى الله عليه وسلم. And that this person must have been the disciple, must have been the student of a person possessed of insight, whose discipleship is part of a chain that leads back to the master of messengers عليه السلام. نعم. وكان محسنا رياضة نفسه بقلة الأكل والقول والنوم وكثرة الصلوات والصدقة والصوم. And it is someone who is proficient in disciplining his soul with little food, little speech and little sleep. And someone who is of much prayer, almsgiving and fasting. So that's the first set of qualities. There's others that are coming in a second, right? So the first thing that the Imam mentions, that it must be someone, i.e. the Shaykh that we must all look for, the Murshid that we must all look for, the Murabbi that we must all look for, it's someone who turns away, who turns their back on the dunya. They have no love of the dunya in their heart whatsoever. Why? Because love of the dunya is the starting point for every mistake, for every sin, for every error. The starting point for all of that is love of the dunya, hubbul dunya. In fact, it's one in a hadith we're told that why, when a time will come when Muslims are weak, the companions, when they asked the Prophet ﷺ about this, of course for them this wasn't even a frame. How can it be that Muslims and they're weak, and that others are making decisions for them and about them? And so the companions, tabarakallah, what's the thing that they said? They said, oh, it must be because they're not that many. Look at the companions, the way they thought about it, because they knew that we were small in number, but no one could change us from what we were trying to do. We were trying to establish the deen of Allah on this earth. So it must be that they're even smaller in number than we are. But the Prophet ﷺ tells him, no, in fact, they are multitudes. And what's the reason that the Prophet ﷺ gives them that they've become so weak? Because the Prophet ﷺ tells us it's because of hubbud dunya wa karahiyatul maut, love of the world and detesting death. Right? It's really profound if you think about the idea that what does it mean to that we're being told that you mustn't dislike death. You know, when you're in a state of good health, death is sometimes the furthest thing from our minds. But we're told that it should be the closest thing to our mind, and it should be something that we welcome and look forward to, because they say that the greatest day for an abd is a day that he meets Allah. It's the day that you die. And that's the day when, if we've done all that we had to do, that's the day that rest begins. Right? So this is what the Imam's telling us here, that the murshid must be someone who has no interest, has no love for the dunya. Because how can someone be a murshid, i.e. someone who guides people to Allah, but they themselves are attached to the dunya? Because the whole purpose of a murshid is to get you away from the dunya. But if the murshid is in the dunya, then how is the murshid going to be able to detach you from the dunya? Instead, what you'll end up seeing is quasi-excuses being made about the permissibility of dunya, and then it depends, la samahallah, on the extent of a particular person, how many excuses they're willing to make, that no, this part of the dunya is okay, no, this is okay. Right? It's not because they're trying to train their students, it's because they want to indulge in the shahwa for the dunya. And the Imam is saying that's not someone who's cut out to be a murshid. Now, and that's why they say that about the dunya, that izzuha dhul wa dhulluha izz, the opposites, which basically amounts to saying that to gain some kind of nobility or rank in the dunya is more likely than not a cause of being humiliated and abased. So someone who seeks izzah in the dunya, right, it's more likely that because they've sought it in the dunya, they're going to be abased in the dunya. But the one who abases himself, i.e. turns away from the dunya, is the one who has true nobility and standing in front of Allah. That's why izzuha, i.e. izzu dunya, dhul. Anyone who seeks izzah in the dunya, it's dhul. It's like being dhalil. And the one who becomes in this state of dhul is the one who has izz, i.e. the one who turns away from the dunya. No? And that's why they say that about the dunya, that manhuha mihan. What's really interesting is that if you look at the word manaha in Arabic means to give someone. In modern Arabic, it means to give someone a stipend to study or a gift. Minha. So manaha means to reward or to give someone something. If you take the same three letters and just change them around, it gives you mahana, not manaha. Manaha and mahana, same three letters. And mahana, mihna, means a trial or a test. So this saying in Arabic is manhuha mihan. That its gifts, i.e. the gifts that the dunya gives you, are actually tribulations. Right? When we think that they are gifts, but in reality they're tests. What are we told in the Quran? Al-malu wal-bununa zinatul hayatid dunya. That's all it is. They're just adornments of this world, nothing more. Right? So all the gifts that we can think about that the dunya gives us, are they truly gifts when we look at them and read them? And then the Imam says, so that's the first thing that you need to look for in a murshid, that he has no love for the dunya in his heart. The second thing is that the Imam says that they should be someone who turns their back on fame, hubbul jah, right? Which is the desire to want to be known and the desire to want to be talked about. That's the idea of fame. You want people to know you, and you want people to talk about you. Now, the great Imams, they say that it's a test in itself. It's a test in itself. I should stand up. It's a test in itself when someone says, "Oh, look, that's so and so." And that applies even to scholars. If you say, "Oh, look, that's so and so scholar," that's a test. Why? Because you're making them feel good about themselves, and potentially it's an avenue for seeking that type of renown from people. Now, what they say is that one of the last bits of this dunya to leave the hearts of the awliya, in other words, we're talking about the people who are on the path of disciplining their soul and have reached the maqam of wilaya, have reached the station of the great pious people, that the last thing of the dunya to leave their hearts is hubbul jah, is the desire to want to be known. So now if that's the state of a wali, right, min bab awla, A40, right? How much more applicable is that to us? The fact that we think that we don't want it, but if we're comparing ourselves to those who are the greats, and it's the last thing to leave their hearts, the very least that we can actually say to ourselves is, yeah, maybe I do seek it. And sometimes you can seek it in your own home, in your own families, in your own small circles. You can seek it about yourself, to yourself, right? Now, and so you might ask, why is it? What is it about human beings that wants this idea of jah, to be known? It's because there's an aspect of being known which appeals to the desire to want to be forever. Because if you think about what it means to be known, it means that you're never ceasing to be mentioned. In good ways, obviously, otherwise you wouldn't want it. And this idea of never wanting to be ceased to be remembered is the root of why people seek it. Now, this is a misplaced understanding. Why? Because only Allah is the one who is akhir, the one who is always there, right? Never will come to an end. And our relationship with Allah insofar as this beautiful name is concerned, Al-Akhir, must be from the aspect of ubudiyah, of slavehood. In other words, we must fully come to recognize that renown is only for Allah. To be known is only for Allah. It's one of those names, because there are names of Allah that we partake in. We need to partake in, like being merciful, rahmah, right? Latif, being kind, right? Wadud, being loving. These names, we want to have those names. But there are names that we say, Tabarakallah, this is Allah. We have no reason and no right to approach those names. Those names are for Allah and for Allah only. The one who has no beginning, where are we going to approach that? The one who has no end, we have no business with that. Right? So, in this sense then, our relationship with this beautiful name is from this aspect. This is one of Allah's attributes, one of Allah's names. We can't approach that. And that's why the great Imām Ibn Ata'illah al-Iskandari, what did he say? He said, Idfin wujudaka fi ardil khumul. That bury your existence deep in the depths of the soil. That's what he says. Bury your existence, not yourself. Think about it for a second, because if it was for just, if he's saying idfin, jasadaka, your body, you might have left traces that people might want to talk about you above ground. He's saying no, idfin wujudaka, your very existence, everything that even suggests that you were here, anything that suggests that we might even come to know you, he's saying bury it in the deepest recesses of the soil. Right? Why? فَمَا نَبَتَ مِمَّا لَمْ يُدْفَنْ لَا يَتِمْ نِتَاجُهُ. That whichever part was not buried, it will never come to fruition. Because think about it. Does a plant have any say on the fact that it suddenly... Because how can a seed acquire so much power that it can push through? I mean, when someone's buried 6 foot underneath the earth, can you push the earth? You can't, can you? It's impossible. The weight of the earth is too much. Now compare a seed to us as human beings. Comparatively, it's the same as a seed being 100 feet buried in the earth, even if it might be just a foot underground, right? How is it possible for an insignificant thing such as a seed to acquire so much power that it comes and breaks through the earth, right, and appears? It's an incredible way of looking at that, because all of the hard work has been done behind the scenes. Has been done when no one even knew there was a seed there, right? Except the person who's, put it there and watering it, right? In our case, in Allah. And so because all of the hard work has taken place away from people's eyes, that's the point now that it's only ready to appear and become manifest when it actually has no interest in people. Why? Because what's the purpose of a tomato plant, for example? It's not to feed itself, it's to feed others. So it's almost what we should be looking at is becoming tomato plants, or any plant that gives some kind of fruit, because tomatoes are fruits, or vegetables, right? That's where we need to be. Because at that point, the plant has no interest in itself, it becomes a fruit-bearing thing. And that's what we want to be, benefit-bearing beings. That's where we want to be. So this idea of being renowned is something that the Imam says, you want to caution yourself when you're looking for a shaykh, looking for a murabbi. The murabbi must be someone who doesn't have any love of the dunya and has no desire for being known. 2 things. But look at the third thing that the Imam mentions. That this person must have been a disciple of a person possessed of insight, that this person who they followed, their own discipleship must be part of a chain that leads back to the Prophet ﷺ. So what are we being told? That this is experiential knowledge. It comes through unbroken chains of witnessing great people manifesting beautiful behavior. Because behavior in its truest essence, in the way it's manifest, can only be seen and understood and enacted on once you've seen the great people do it. can't be learnt from books. You can pick up a book and it can say to you, do this, do that, but go out there and try to practice it. It just won't work. It works when someone inspires you through their example and you see them and you want to follow them. And so that the Imam is saying here, then it's a must that we follow someone who sits in a chain of learnt behavior which comports with prophetic teaching. That's the idea. But then he says, the Imam says, that this person, this murshid, this guide, this teacher that we seek, must be someone who is proficient in disciplining himself with little food, little speech, and little sleep. In other words, any design that we may have had, that we might be one of these people, probably gone out the window there. Right. They say that eating little will take a person to the highest places in Jannah. A'la al-'aliyyin. Eating little will take someone to the highest places of Jannah. The great Dhunnun al-Misri said that wisdom does not reside in one who has a full belly. Can never reside in the one who has a full belly. And Imam al-Ghazālī, in his great book Minhaj al-Abidin, he says, whoever eats too much will never really taste the sweetness of worship. It's powerful, isn't it? That whoever eats too much will never truly taste the sweetness of worship. Because there's something about having an aspect of hunger. Now, it's important here that the hunger that they're referring to is not excessive hunger to the point that you're weak, you can't even walk. It's not talking about that. It's saying, as the prophetic example is, a third, of the plate should be for food, and a third should be for water, and a third for air. A rule of thumb should be that whatever we're eating now, just immediately take out half of it. That's sufficient for us, and ziyada. Because the sunnah, some people say sunnah is a third. The sunnah, in fact, is eating enough to keep your back straight. A third is if you have to. So more than a third, can we go beyond fractions? Like, what's more than one? You can say a third, a fourth, right? You can say 2/3, and then you get to one. But then how about if you go to, 1 and 1/3, and 1 and 3/3, right? It's reversing the whole idea of what it should be. And so that's the idea. It's to have an aspect of hunger, because there is a beauty to being hungry. It's about reveling in it, enjoying it. It's about understanding that, this is something which is going to aid me in my ibadah with Allah. Now, the world that we live in, and I truly do believe this, and maybe I should comment on this. I don't believe that, sometimes when, food may get the better of us, it's not because people are given to wanting to eat excessively all the time. It's just that they're eating the wrong foods. That's all it is. Because if we ate hearty meals, believe me, we wouldn't be hungry. But because of the way our lives are structured, we tend to end up eating things through sometimes no fault of our own that you think is nutritious, right? But actually doesn't give us the right nutrition that we need. But unfortunately, what it does give us is the calories. So it gives us the calories, bundles in all the sugar that we don't need, and then we're left hungry. And also, as you know, what it does, it gives us spikes, and we feel good once we've had some chocolates or something, right? And that's the point. It's not that people are somehow, really sort of hunger driven and driven by just, maybe there are, but it's certainly better to look at it this way. It's just about making the better choices. And the better choices are not always easy to make, but as with anything, right, it has to be planned. And not only are the better choices good for our spirit, they're also good for our health. And of course, I speak here first and foremost to myself. It immediately gives you lesser feelings of being bloated and inflammation and all those different things, right? We have doctors here, they can tell us. Now, so a key thing here is little food, little speech. Now, we spoke about this at length this time last year, you'll remember, in the lectures on the perils of the tongue. And I think we all went away realizing that it makes sense not to say a lot. There's safety in not to say a lot. But of course, it doesn't always mean that, because you can have what's called mu'ashara, social interactions with people. But as long as the things that you speak about are of benefit, because you're doing it to increase love amongst yourselves, speak about things which are of benefit, and it could be anything. You could talk about the fact that you put together an IKEA drawer, right? But the idea is that you're trying to share something that if, maybe Binyamin's putting together an IKEA drawer very soon, I might be able to help him out just in case he needs to know, right? So you can always underpin the things that you're about to say with good intentions. And then, of course, to someone who is of little sleep. And again, there's a direct correlation between too much food and too much sleep, and less food and less sleep. A belly that's full tends to want to sleep more, and a belly that's empty tends to be more sprightly. It wants to get up. So that's the first part. And then the Imam says that the murshid should be, how many do we have? We have, this person shouldn't have hubbul dunya, hubbul jah, love of the dunya, love of fame. Must be someone who is given to prayer, gives much sadaqah, speaks little and sleeps little, and also must be someone of much prayer and giving sadaqah and fasting. Now, if we look at the prayer, it's the first sign of a shaykh. What is the shaykh like in relation to his prayer? Because the prayer, just as hubbul dunya is the cause of all why we err, the prayer is a foundation for all that we do. And if you look at the prayer, it actually contains every form of ibadah that you can think about. We have all different types of ibadah that are instituted in our deen. You'll see that the prayer has every single one of them. So, the fact that the prayer has purity, right? Is it not part of our deen to be pure? Not just for the prayer, but generally. At-tahur shatrul iman. Why are we told that purity or cleanliness is half of deen, is half of faith? Because the idea is that cleanliness has to do with the outward, external aspect of the dunya. And if someone isn't concerned with the outward cleanliness of the dunya, how will they be interested in internal cleanliness of our souls and our hearts? Stands to reason, doesn't it? So look at that. The prayer, it contains purity. It contains the idea of covering ourselves, ay haya. You can't just go into the prayer and however you want to, right? There must be a certain comportment in terms of our dress. The prayer contains this idea of turning to the Kaaba. You can't, for example, do you have to turn anywhere when you fast, when you give charity? No. Look at this prayer, this act of ibadah, that it has this command, which is we have to obey. The Kaaba is your compass and you have to face it wherever you might be. And it's a condition. It's not even something you can just, maybe I don't have to do it. It's a condition of your prayer. And then it asks us for khushu. It's that very thing that we take from outside of the prayer, inside of the prayer, as I've mentioned many times. It requires sincerity. It contains intimate dialogue with Allah, what's referred to as munaja. It contains, this aspect of struggle against the shaitan, the fact that, to wake up for Fajr, right? It's not always easy. It contains recitation of the Quran. It contains the idea of foregoing food and drink. Because in the prayer, you're fasting. It's amazing, isn't it? In the prayer, we're fasting. Because once you say Allahu Akbar, food and drink becomes haram until you now come out of the prayer. And if you look at the type of ibadah, every human posture that we can adopt is in the prayer. Standing, bowing, sitting, prostrating. It's amazing, isn't it, if you think about it, right? it contains every type of dhikr that we can imagine. Praising Allah, thanking Allah, glorifying Allah, mentioning Allah's unity, right? Saying that everything, every form of dhikr that we can think of is contained in the prayer. And so the salah, it covers the fard, the nafal, the sunnah. Everything is in the prayer. That's why it's imaduddin, it's the foundation, it's the pillar of our deen. So the shaykh must be someone who is given to their prayer. Now, I remember one of a great friend of mine, he said that he was in Mauritania once, and he was with the mashayikh in Mauritania, and they were sitting down having a discussion about whatever it was, and there was a pause for a few moments, and the shaykh got up and started praying. And he said, I looked at my time and my watch, thinking, am I missing something? It's not, shraq, it's not time for dhuhr, which prayer is this? And he realized that it wasn't anything. It was just the fact that there's a lull in our conversation, so let's fill this time by praying. That's what I mean. It's about being with people like that you're seeing, oh wow, the prayer isn't just a 5 times a day thing. The prayer is the default. It's not that we go to work and we have to come back and pray. No, we pray and we have to somehow fit work into that, right? It's a completely different mindset. We should feel good when we come home and we get changed, we freshen up. Alhamdulillah, now it's the time for me to just take everything out of your mind, all the troubles, all the worries, all the calls that you have to make, leave it to one side. So you know what? It's just me and Allah, no one's getting between us, and I'm going to the masjid. Or I have, you have your own little space in the house dedicated to your prayer. So the prayer and then almsgiving, i.e. fasting. We know that sadaqah, it comes from the same word what's the word for sadaqah? What's the shares a root with which word in Arabic? Sadaqah? Sidq. Which is an aspect of, which basically means to be truthful. Now, what are you being truthful to? What is it that we're being truthful to? We're being truthful to our covenant with Allah. Because to give someone money, or anyone, a poor person, right? It's hard. It's not easy, is it? Right? And so the Imam says here some additional qualities. Let's read what they are. Page 36, 37, second paragraph. وَكَانَ بِمُطَابَعَتِهِ ذَلِكَ الشَّيْخَ الْبَصِيرَ جَاعِلًا مَحَاسِنَ الْأَخْلَاقِ لَهُ سِيرَةً كَالصَّبْرِ وَالصَّلَاةِ وَالشُّكْرِ وَالتَّوَكُّلِ وَالْيَقِينِ وَالْقَنَاعَةِ وَطُمَأْنِينَةِ النَّفْسِ وَالْحِلْمِ وَالتَّوَاضُعِ وَالْعِلْمِ وَالصِّدْقِ وَالْحَيَاءِ وَالْوَفَاءِ وَالْوَقَارِ وَالسَّكُونِ والتأني وأمثالها فهو إذا نور من أنوار النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يصلح للاقتداء به. Now, what are these things that the Imam is mentioning here? That the additional qualities that the Shaykh must have is that he must be patient. Not that it's someone that you're hanging around with and as soon as someone cuts them up on the road, you see a different side to them. Or you arranged a meeting and someone didn't turn up, or the meeting got delayed or whatever, and all of a sudden, started throwing their toys out their pram, right? It's someone who's just calm. Alhamdulillah, it doesn't matter. Whatever's happening is happening, right? Or when their football team loses, they get very upset, Can't speak to someone for 2 days, right? It's a disease, that is. Right, the fact that we can get so into something or to that nature that it affects us, right? And as you'll recall, and I won't go into it now, but sabr, patience, is of many different types, and each type of sabr has a particular name for it, right? And sabr is the overall name that's given to the idea of patience in general. So that's one, patience, gratitude. The Imams, they say that even a single tasbih, i.e. saying Subhanallah, requires one to be grateful. Think about that. The fact that we say Subhanallah, it must be followed by saying, and we thank you Allah for allowing us to do that. And then you think, okay, hold on, I should also thank Allah for the fact that He allowed me to thank Him as well. Where are you going to stop? In other words, if we truly understood that, right, we'll know that, tabarakallah, there's, and these are just evident things that come to us. How about the things which are to do with the fact that we don't even notice tabarakallah, our bodies work seamlessly, alhamdulillah, we wake up every day, Allah keep us in good health, inshallah, and siha, afiyah, right? But the fact that just thinking about that, how, we have, so you'll see the mashayikh, they're eternally in a state of gratitude, right? Because if you think about this idea, well, no, but I do things, and maybe, look, I'm praying, and so there's something about me in there as well. Well, it's as the great Ibn Ata'illah, he says that, okay, well, before Allah created you, and you were nothing, you didn't exist, what good deeds did you have at that point? What had you done at that point? What could you have bought and put in front of Allah and said, Ya Allah, look at what I have to put in front of you, so on account of that, A, create me, and B, create me as a Muslim? Nothing. That's why it's just fadl, completely from Allah. Nothing that we have done to deserve this. Just that is an eternal state of gratitude, right? And that should be our state, perpetually. That's why what you'll see about these people is that they're not people who show these traits. They're enveloped by these traits. They're not having to think about, oh yeah, I should have been grateful. You'll just see that they're eternally grateful. They're always in a state of thankfulness, always in a state of patience, right? Generosity, certitude. Not someone who's like a wind vane. You know what a wind vane is? It's, you put it on top of houses when it tells you which direction the wind's blowing, right? This is the same with people. That a shaykh who's a murshid can't be someone who goes with whatever intellectual trend that might be going on right now. No, thabat, deen is deen. And whatever trends may come and go, that's what they are, just intellectual trends. The worst thing is when a shaykh has to justify that trend because of a weakness in their understanding of who we are. That's why the Imām is saying here, certitude, to have certainty about who we are. Don't be weak. Just because something else comes your way and someone's saying something doesn't mean you have to adopt it, right? Generosity. And so Sayyidina Ali said, honestly, you see this from the great mashayikh. Once I went to see Shaykh Ibrahim Khalil Ahsa, Allah yarhamu, he's passed away not long ago. Actually buried in Istanbul in Ayub. One of the great muhaddithun of this age, from Saudi in fact, from Ahsa. And you go to benefit from them, and even this was before I started studying with him. It was a brief ziyarah, and by the time I'd left, I had a bag full of sort of dates and books and hats and pens and diaries and everyone who came with me as well. And I came to know then once I began studying with him, that he actually takes care of his students completely. Their accommodation, their food, their books, everything. The students don't pay for anything. Tabarakallah. That's a murshid, right? And so Sayyidina Ali said about generosity, when can one say that they are truly a man? He says 4 things have to be present. To be generous when one has little. To be generous when you don't have much. Someone told me they were studying in Damascus, went to someone's house, and students of knowledge, sometimes they didn't tend to have much, Misbah will tell us. And so he went to the house, and this person didn't have a lot, and what did he do? He put a tomato on the table. It's probably all he had. Right? But it's okay. That's what I have. What did I say in Arabic? Al-jud bil mawjud. That generosity is with whatever you have. Right? So Sayyidina Ali says it's to be generous when one has little, number 1. Number 2, It's to have humility when you're in a position of power. Otherwise you'll be on a power trip. Humility when in a position of power. Number 3, to be forgiving even though you may have the power and ability to do something about it. Right? I mean, sometimes, we say, we don't actually have the ability to say anything. And you say, okay, I forgive them. But you had no choice. But how about when you do have the choice, you have the power, you have the ability to do something about it, but you choose to forgive. Right? That takes a huge, a person of great understanding. So that's number 3. And number 4 is to give to others without reminding them that you've given it to them. Whatever it may be, a gift or, support or help. It's like when we've helped someone, it should be erased from our memories. We shouldn't even want to know that, when you meet that same person the next time, it shouldn't even be in your minds that, I helped that person. Or I did something for that person. To the point that if they say to you, it should go, oh, did I? Okay. Completely, unaware of it. So there are 4 things, powerful statement of Sayyidina Ali, karramallahu wajhahu. And then he says, the Imam says that the Shaykh must be someone who has contentment. Tama'. Now tama' in Arabic has the same root as ta'am, food. It's really interesting, isn't it, how the word for contentment in Arabic shares the same root as the word for food. Because it's almost like sometimes we can never be content with food. Right? So just to acquire this quality of just being content, to have tuma'ninat and nafs, which here he translates it as self-composure, but it's really about having tranquility in one's soul. That's what it means. You're not perturbed by things. Things may be going on around, but alhamdulillah, we're unaffected by it. Mildness, humility, knowledge, sincerity, modesty, fidelity, dignity, silence, and deliberateness in acting. I mean, these are just some of the things, right? And so what does the Imam say? That if you find someone like this, then know that they are a light from amongst the lights of the Prophet ﷺ, and they are worthy of being followed. But then he says, وَلَكِنْ وجود مثله نادر أعز من الكبريت الأحمر. But finding the like of someone like this is harder than red sulfur. Red sulfur is a sort of a figure of speech in alchemy. It's an idea in alchemy, but it's a figure of speech where if something's so hard to attain or doesn't even exist, they say, oh, it's like looking for red sulfur, al-kibrit al-ahmar. Right? So what the Imam is saying, that to find someone like this is as if someone is looking for al-kibrit al-ahmar, but doesn't mean that they don't exist. What's the dua that we said last week? Allahumma dullani ala man yadulluni alayk. Allahumma dullani ala man yadulluni alayk. Oh Allah, guide me to the one who will guide me to you. And there's no doubt that Allah will guide us to someone and those people who will guide us to Him, inshallah. نعم. ومن ساعدته السعادة فوجد شيخا كما ذكرنا وقبله الشيخ ينبغي أن يحترمه ظاهرا وباطنا. That whoever is favored by good fortune in finding such a sheikh, right, as we've mentioned, and the sheikh accepts that person, right, then you should venerate him outwardly and inwardly. Yarhamakallah. It shouldn't just be that you're outwardly respectful to that person. In fact, your veneration for that individual must be even more internally than it is externally. Because externally we can just be a bit absent-minded sometimes, but internally we have absolute reverence and regard for this individual. And then the Imam goes on to speak about the comportment of the murshid, of the one who's, not the murshid, of the one who's now taken the shaykh. How should the student or the one who's adopting this path wants to follow this shaykh, what should they be doing now that they found someone like this? But that inshallah will continue next week, and we will pause here for questions if indeed there are any.